many of you have ever heard someone say, if you're not getting a job, just start a business? You can show by your hands. How many of you? You've all heard this before. And this actually been the discourse in Ghana for the past couple of weeks, where one of our dear politicians said, if you're unemployed and you're not getting a job, start selling what? Indomie. And you see, the whole thing's that I actually understand where advices like that usually come from. It usually comes from trying to discourage idleness and encourage initiative. It's trying to get people to move from doing nothing to doing something. But however, and I agree with that 100%, because I want people to be busy. I don't want them to be not doing anything. But however, you see that sentence right there. If you're not doing anything, just start a business. That's one of the biggest problems with entrepreneurship in Africa. And I will explain. Should I explain? Okay. You see, a couple of years ago, when I resigned from my job to be able to focus on my business, because at the time we were getting a lot of traction with what we were doing. A lot of people were calling us here, left, right, center. And I decided that, I couldn't juggle both my job and the business. So I dropped the job to focus on the business. Now, on focus on the business, I remember during that period of time, I first went to church and I met one of the church aunties. I was working with my friend and we closed and everything. And I met one of the church aunties who's one of my mom's friends actually. And she sees me and we exchange pleasantries. She's excited to see me. And she says, are you still in university? And at the time, I finished university about 2 or 3 years ago. And I said, I finished university about 2 or 3 years ago. So she goes like, what are you doing now? And I, as modest as Ghanaians, I know Ghanaians, we don't like to talk big. Right? You know that? And so I was like, even though we do a lot of big moves, I was like, I'm running this growing consulting company and I demand like this. And then she goes like, wow, that's good. I'm happy for you. I'm happy you've started a business while you're waiting for a job. I'm like, what? And so my friend looks at me like this. I look at him like this. You know that thing where you've not said anything, but you know exactly what you're saying? You know that thing, right? And so he looks at me, I look at him, and I just was static. I didn't know what to say. And the things that I can't actually blame her. That's how a lot of people actually think about entrepreneurs in Africa. It's like they think that some people start businesses just because they are unemployed or they don't have the requisite qualifications to be able to get a job or a high-paying job. And that type of thinking needs to change. Somebody say needs to change. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I believe entrepreneurship, okay? I believe entrepreneurship is going to be the vehicle by which we are going to create a lot of economic transformation for Africa. Now, if you've ever watched the docu-series, The Men Who Built America, I don't know how many of you have watched that before, right? Where it has JP Morgan, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Henry Ford. These are the men who built America. Now, these people were all entrepreneurs, and they took America from this level to another level because they were strategic entrepreneurs. According to Mohawk Africa, Africa currently has over 244 million businesses. I want you to think about that number for a second. 244 million businesses. And all of these businesses are being powered and forward by entrepreneurs. And if entrepreneurship is supposed to be the vehicle for economic transformation in Africa, how is that over 244 million businesses in Africa is still the same? We are not just where we want to be yet. Does it mean we need more entrepreneurs? Not necessarily. It actually means we need to churn out a different type of entrepreneur. You see, there are two types of entrepreneurs. There are what you call circumstantial entrepreneurs and what you call intentional entrepreneurs. Circumstantial entrepreneurs are people who went on the entrepreneurship path, not necessarily by choice, but through a secondary option. So, for example, something happened, you lost a job, or something happened to you, you just dropped out of school and decided something radically happened and you just decided, now that I don't have anything, let me start a business. One example is somebody like Mark Cuban. Now, Mark Cuban got fired from his job as a salesperson. He then later founded this company called Micro Solutions and later sold it for multiple millions. But the whole thing is that, you see, circumstantial entrepreneurs is what Africa has. The majority of the 244 million businesses are all circumstantial. A lot of them are circumstantial entrepreneurs. These are people who usually start businesses first to survive. You know, in Africa, we try to build businesses just to be able to get by and everything. But you see, the real change comes from when we get people from just building businesses just merely to fend for themselves and their families to be able to create things that actually transform. Just imagine if we had a lot of people who were creating businesses, not just as a means of survival, but as a means of transformation. And that's what actually the intentional entrepreneur is all about. The other people who decide intentionally to choose the entrepreneurship route. They decide, they make a choice, they make that decision that, listen, entrepreneurship is my primary option, and I'm looking at the problems and I'm going to tackle them and use business as that avenue to do that. And so that's what we call intentional entrepreneurs, because intentionality changes everything. And if you think I'm lying about intentionality, you can ask the ladies. Ladies, are you in the house? How many of you want an intentional man? Oh, show by you, how many of you want an intentional man? You don't want somebody to open the door for you who, before your birthday, 1 week before, you send you some flowers, you don't want that? Talk to me. Or I should do a dating masterclass for you all, right? But intentionality literally changes everything. You see, this principle of intentionality doesn't just go for entrepreneurs. It goes for all professionals in Africa and of all kinds. Just think about the teacher who just chooses that profession of teaching. No, he's choosing it intentionally, not just because he didn't have any other thing to do, and that's why he's doing it. Just imagine if the teacher was intentional about, okay, I want to teach because I want to create this type of impact. Think about the civil servants. Think about the nurse, the police officer. Oh, we need intentionality, and that's what's going to change the landscape of Africa. So the question is, how then do we create intentional entrepreneurs? Because that's my conversation for today. And I believe that it begins with 4 shifts. Some say 4 shifts. Now, I've put these 4 shifts in a simple framework because I believe when I've studied a lot of entrepreneurs, they subconsciously or consciously operate through these 4 shifts or these 4 pillars, however you want to put them. It's very simple. It's very simple. Problem, possibility, purpose, people. Now, I'll bring this to life soon. But you see, if we begin to be able to churn a group of entrepreneurs who think in these dimensions, we can create an intentional crop of entrepreneurs who don't just build businesses to survive, but they build businesses to transform. Now, let me talk about the problem. You see, it will shock you that the word problem actually comes from the Latin word known as question. Or the word problem comes from the Latin word known as problema, and problema means question. Now, what that actually means is that, you see, the whole thing is this in Africa. We get punished for for asking questions. Don't we know that? You ask a question, it's almost like you've committed a crime. But that's what problems are, and nobody is questioning things. The moment we begin to question things, like, why is this way and why is this not this way? The moment we begin to create a group of entrepreneurs who begin to think within this framework of questioning systems and questioning things, we begin to create businesses that transform stuff. That's what we need. But people are just not looking out for problems. But problems is about asking questions. Why haven't you asked the question about what's going wrong? However, you see, it's not just enough to ask questions, because a lot of times seeing the problem is not the entire solution. Your ability to see the problem is one part of it. Your ability to see the possibility of a solution is another part of it. And the thing about Africa is that because we are surrounded by so many problems and the impossibilities of so many different things, it's very difficult for us to believe in the possible. And that's what possibility is all about. It's so that we need to be able to see the problems and envisage possible solutions so that we can match the right problems to the right solutions. Once we have that, we change the game. Now, you see, the thing about possibility is that you need to have faith, and Africans need to have faith. Somebody say, I need to have faith. Africans need to have faith. One time, Vusi Femekwayo met Nelson Mandela, and he asked him, what is faith? And Nelson Mandela said, faith is the ability to see the invisible, it's the ability to believe in the possible, and it's the ability to trust in the unknown. That's what Africa needs. We need the ability to see the invisible, to believe the impossible, and to trust in the unknown. That leads me to the next thing. Not only do we need a group of entrepreneurs who know how to see problems and build with possibility, but we need them to build with purpose. Purpose changes the game. You know, I always say this: once you can understand your why, success can never tell you bye. Can you say this after me? Once you can understand your why, success will never tell you bye. That's because when you are building from a place of a deeper meaning, everything changes. And that's what we need. People who understand that, because circumstantial entrepreneurs usually just, since they build businesses to survive, they don't usually build from a place of meaning. And so when shaky times come, they just easily give up. But if you're able to raise a group of entrepreneurs who build from meaning and the why, when shaky times come, guess what? They will stand still, because there's something deeper than a shallow reason of trying to just make profit, because there's purpose in the equation. Not only that, we need to be able to build a business, not just a business that we want, but a business that the people want, that the market wants. And once we have these things, this is how we are able to churn out the next group of intentional entrepreneurs. Let me bring this to life. I don't know if any of you have heard of this guy called Fred Swaniker. Now, Fred Swaniker he runs ALX, ALU, and all of that. Now, he actually lived in multiple African countries before he was 18. He's actually a Ghanaian, by the way. And he actually fled Ghana when the coup was happening. And the thing is this, when you begin to see this intentional entrepreneur framework, you see how it works in Fred Swaniker's life. Now, Fred Swaniker identified a very specific problem, a precise problem, not a general one. He realized that the thing that was holding Africa back was not money, was not resources, was not even the infrastructure. It was the shortage of capable and ethical leaders. And so that was the problem that he saw. He began to question the system. Why don't we have ethical and capable leaders? Why is it that we have all of these resources and the leaders are mismanaging them? That was the problem that he saw. Then he began to think about the possibility of it. Is it possible to actually churn out a group of intentional entrepreneurs or intentional leaders? Just like we're able to produce doctors and lawyers intentionally, can we do that with leaders? He saw that, and he decided to see that, okay, he can actually create something that can do that. So he was able to envisage the possibility. Not only that, he began to build from purpose. So you see, the thing about purpose is not just about building from a why, it's also about setting a clear-cut mission that drives you. He set a mission that by 2035, he should have trained over 1 million African leaders. That's not just a business target, that is purpose right there. Now, after he did that, the people responded. Now, ALX has trained a lot of people, tens of thousands of Africans all across Africa in all of the different countries, and they continue to do so, and they're still aiming for their target in 2035. And now Fred Swaniker is celebrated everywhere. He's celebrated on Times Magazine, Forbes, and everywhere, and all of you know him. So I end on this note. You see, this is what I want to tell you. Africa doesn't just need more entrepreneurs, we need more intentional entrepreneurs. That's what we really need. We need people who know how to build from intention. Just like our forefathers, Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, the Big Six. You know how they fought for our independence intentionally? They went on that fight intentionally. That's what we need with the entrepreneurship game. That's what we really need. And once we have that, the game is going to change. When I say Tro Boy, you say, hey. Tro Boy! Tro Boy! Thank you. My name is Paa Kwesi Folson.